Paul's Hebrew name is Saul, and he was a Pharisee of Pharisees. He heralded from Tarsus and was a child of the diaspora. His scriptures that he grew up with would have been the Greek-speaking translation, the Septuagint. He was intensely zealous to protect the Judaism of his forefathers. He hated followers of the way of Jesus, and would be dragging men and women into prison. And he was even in AD 35 overseeing and approving the martyrdom, the death of the follower of Jesus, Stephen, in Jerusalem. He was on a journey from Jerusalem to Damascus, seeking to put men and women who followed Jesus in prison there, when he has this most extraordinary encounter on the way to Damascus. Jesus himself reveals himself to him. At that moment, Paul's eyes are opened and he realizes that Jesus, Yeshua, is the Jewish Messiah. He is the Messiah who fulfills all the prophecies in the Hebrew Bible. And from being church persecutor, he is thoroughly converted into being a radical church planter. On arriving in Damascus, he goes straight to the synagogue and starts preaching that Jesus is the Messiah. He settles with other believers in Syrian Antioch, and after a time, he is sent out with Barnabas on what became known as his first missionary journey. Then a few years later, he's sent out, relocates a base of operations in Corinth along with Silas and other co-workers, and finally a third missionary journey based in Ephesus. At this point, he returns back to Jerusalem. He is placed under arrest and spends some time here in Caesarea Maritime on the coast of Israel before going on a ship back to spending more time in house arrest in Rome. During his 3 missionary journeys, he writes a number of letters, 6 of which have been preserved in our New Testament. Paul was the most influential person who's ever lived, second to Jesus, and his letters have really formed the thinking of Western and global thought and still impact us today. So what was his strategy? How did he achieve such monumental impact on the world as he knew it, but also history in the making? Well, he actually followed a very similar pattern to Jesus. They were very similar in their approach to telling other people the good news about the extension of God's good governance on earth as it is in heaven. Firstly, they were both incredibly emotionally intelligent. Jesus tells parables about farming and fishing and building to farmers, fishermen and builders. However, when he speaks to the religious elite, he uses much more language around interpretations of the Torah. Similarly, Paul, when he spoke in synagogues to Jewish communities, he would reference the Hebrew Bible. But when he was speaking to a Greco-Roman audience, he would actually use poetry from their own culture and perspective from their own worldview. So they both shared this extraordinary empathy for their audience and connectedness with their worldview. Secondly, they were both highly strategic. Wherever they went, they sought out people or places of peace. For example, Jesus is rejected from his hometown Nazareth after his first sermon in the synagogue there after his baptism and testing in the wilderness. So he relocates to Capernaum, where he's welcomed into the home of Peter and his extended family. And Capernaum, the home there, becomes his base of operations for his tours around the Galilee. Similarly, Paul, every city he went to, he sought out a synagogue for Jewish people who were seeking the Messiah, to explain to them that Jesus had already come, and revealing that reality through his understanding of the Hebrew Bible. However, if he was asked to leave the synagogue, he would then go to the local Gentile meeting house, where he would debate with the Greco-Roman culture about the reality of God revealed in the person of Jesus. Both of them also, as part of their strategy, sent out other co-workers in pairs, both Jesus sending out 12 and then 72, and Paul sending out missionaries from both Corinth and Ephesus, such that he could claim by the end of those 3 missionary tours that the whole of Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey, had heard the word of the Lord. So they were both highly emotionally intelligent, they were both very strategic, and finally they were both marked by power and persecution. Wherever Paul went, along with his co-workers, they ministered in incredible power and authority, seeing extraordinary healings, backing up the message that God's good governance had come on earth as it is in heaven. But that also attracted hostility and persecution and opposition, and Paul would come to a place of peace with this. He heard Jesus say to him personally, "My power is made perfect in weakness. My grace is sufficient." He was imprisoned at least 3 times, while the good news of Jesus is still going to the ends of the earth. Luke particularly showcases his Paul and his apostolic co-workers, whose extraordinary endeavour enabled the good news of Jesus to go out of the region of Israel and beyond, through Turkey, through Greece, and culminating in a strong witness to Jesus in the heart of the Roman Empire, in Rome itself.